There is golf to discuss. The USPGA will reach its conclusion at Harding Park this evening. The leaderboard as follows. Dustin Johnson is the leader on 9 under. We have Scotty Scheffler, name may not be familiar to many of you, on 8 under, shot back alongside big hitting Cameron Champ. And then we have a bunch of quality on 7 under and 6 under. Colin Morikawa, 7 under. Brooks Koepka, two-time defending champion, 7 under. Paul Casey, 7 under. Bryson DeChambeau is at 6 under alongside Justin Rose, Tony Finau, Jason Day and Tommy Fleetwood as well, who was more than capable of a strong Sunday finish. So it is stacked and bunched, and it should be a really good conclusion. To that end, we have Lawrence Donegan with us. Good afternoon, good morning where you are.
How you doing, Joe? Most dangerous sport in the world, Scottish football. See some of those tackles.
Attending or playing?
I think playing. I don't want to think you take your limbs out there very much.
You're over on the West Coast these days, aren't you? Okay.
San Francisco.
Okay, so spare a thought for us, because it's tough going over here. 1:30, 2 o'clock, 2:30 kind of finish. We are coffee out, bleary-eyed watching this.
Well, tough. This is the first PGA Championship on the West Coast since Riviera, 96. Yeah. It's a strange one, that, because tonight it's a 6 o'clock finish at 9 p.m. on the East Coast, prime time. You would think they would come. The USGA in recent years, who have the US Open, they come to the West Coast quite frequently now. But the PGA Championship, as I say, hasn't been here for a long time. And it's going back to the East Coast for the next few years as well. It's
at TPC Harding Park. Are you one of those local-ish residents who can play Harding Park then for a pretty reasonable amount?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a municipal course. It's brilliant. And they redid it in 2003. I actually played in the San Francisco City Championship in 2003. I can give you my blow-by-blow account of my round if you want. But yeah, you can. It's great. If you live in the city, you can get a residence card and you can play for, I think, about $57. Okay. I just live over the Golden Gate Bridge, so I think I'm in the $90 range to play a major championship venue. That is something else. My kid is a youth on course member, they call it, and it's a scheme where he can play it for $5. Wow.
Isn't that amazing? So it's a very, very accessible golf course. I wouldn't say it's an architectural masterpiece, but it's a very fun and playable walk. Although not this week. They've grown up. They're up. Actually, I played it a couple of months ago, and already the rough was looking quite juicy. So I can't imagine trying to play it this week. But it's a major championship venue.
So broad terms then, how have you found this major championship week?
Kind of interesting. I think it's too early. I think we'd have to sort of spend a while digesting it. But you look at the leaderboard and you look at, listen to, for instance, the way Tiger was talking yesterday. He seems like very much talking as if he's in the twilight of his career. Changing of the guard. I mean, some of the names there, we haven't seen them there, but we've seen them around on the PGA Tour. But the Cameron Champs of this world, Scotty Scheffler, he won 3 times. I know nobody's really heard of him, but he's a proper player. He won the US Junior Am years ago. I remember watching that. 3-time winner in the Corn Ferry Tour last year. Morikawa, again, we've all heard of him in recent times, but never in major championships. Finau, DeChambeau, Matthew Wolff is another one. I mean, he's at 5 under. He probably won't win it, but these are all, new names. It's been interesting from that perspective. I mean, I love it because I know the golf course, basically every blade of grass on the golf course, so it's great from that perspective. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a classic, not yet, but it's certainly kind of interesting in multiple ways.
Yeah, I'm not sure from my perspective, having not played the golf course, walked it or seen it before, how well it's translated to TV. A touch samey, a touch boring. The cypress trees are beautiful, there's no doubt, but too many times from the TV coverage off the tee, I can't see the fairway that well. I mean, the dog legs, when it's framed by trees, you can. It's not to say it's bad, it's just, I suspect it's been flattened out on 2D television, and it's okay. That's what I would say. It's not going to live long in my memory.
Well, again, the PGA Championship is a bit like that. Bellerive, was that a great golf course? Can you remember much of that?
No.
And Bethpage Black, for all its vaunted reputation, it's quite a boring golf course.
So boring. It's the same hole over and over again.
Yeah. My rule on golf courses, Joe, is if I can remember the routing afterwards, you're sitting in the pub or a couple of days later, and if you can remember every hole, then that to me is a golf course that's grabbed your attention. Now, I'm not going to say that Harding Park would do that for anybody, but it doesn't help either that there's no fans defining the fairways.
Yeah.
I think that's an issue, and it doesn't help that to try and contain the scoring. If these boys went out and played the way I play it, week out, week in, wherever, these boys would be shooting in the mid-50s. It's so the fairways are 22, 23 yards wide. So, yeah, not a great golf course, but again, if you look back, I always say, people ask me, what was the best golf tournament you've ever been at? And, I've been at a few. I would say outside of the majors, the 2005 American Express Championship at Harding Park had the best leaderboard I'd ever seen in my life. It was Tiger and Daly, and so it does have it's a small sample size, but it does produce great leaderboards and really good winners. And you look at this leaderboard this week. Okay, Tiger's not there, Rory's not there, but it's a pretty tight. Really. We say this every Sunday morning of a major championship, but it's got a lot of promise there, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does. Paul McGinley said last night on Sky Television over here that he thought the setup was excellent, spot on. They judged it really well, difficulty and yet allowing the quality to come through. And that leaderboard is full of quality. As a brief tangent, I mentioned TV coverage over here. I was just like sickened, heartbroken that I couldn't watch Phil Mickelson with Nick Faldo, because I saw Twitter like exploding last night saying Mickelson with Faldo and Nance is the best thing they've ever seen. And I did see the initial, you need to, I don't want to ruin the joke because it's just too good, but Jim Nance introduces Mickelson and Mickelson says, dead-eyed, straight-faced, I'm really good at three things, talking golf and playing golf. And Nance knows exactly what Mickelson's doing. And Faldo earnestly is saying, well, you said three things. What's the other thing? And Nance is trying to say, he's setting you up here. And Faldo's like, go on, what's the third? And Nance just had to say, Nick, it's a joke. And on they go. And I mean, I'm like, what happened in the next 59 minutes?
Well, the thing is, I'll tell you what, it's interesting. Mickelson can now play on the PGA Champions Tour. And he's shown absolutely no inclination to go and do it. And you look at him there. Tony Romo, a famous Dallas Cowboys quarterback, he, instead of when he retired early from the Cowboys and went to CBS, the network that has the PGA Championship here, they pay him $17 million a year. Yeah. $17 million, which is more than he got as a quarterback. So you just wonder if Mickelson's looking at this and thinking, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. And he is. He was brilliant. But and Faldo is, I mean, no offense, he's rubbish. I mean, he's rubbish. He mispronounces names. He doesn't do any preparation. And you just wonder if that was Mickelson's audition for the gig. Hopefully he'll be on again today. I can't imagine that they won't take the chance if they get the chance.
How much would you have to pay Phil Mickelson for him to hit the road 50 weeks of the year?
Well, they don't do 50 weeks of the year, do they? They do, I mean, not to get too deep in the weeds here, the networks share it around here, CBS and NBC and the Golf Channel share it around. If I'm Phil Mickelson, I'd be on the Johnny Miller deal. Miller was a famous NBC guy, he won the US Short 63 and blah, blah, blah. But, so you do 12 weeks a year and you rake in the cash for that,
Did Miller only do 12 weeks a year? God, I feel like he was ever present.
Well, he wasn't, because NBC didn't have every single tournament.
Yeah.
I say 12 weeks, maybe 12 to 15 weeks. 12 to 15 weeks, $8 million a year, Joe. Maybe even you would do that gig.
Well, and was Mickelson insightful on other players or the course? Or I heard he was very funny as well. I mean, he is funny.
Yeah, he is. He was. Again, with all these guys, and that was the genius of Johnny Miller. Mickelson's still out there. He still has to hang around with these guys. So it was a little bit, I think he said Dustin Johnson was a great putter. I mean, I had to laugh at that. I know Dustin, or he said it was a sneakily great putter. I know Johnson's leading the field in strokes gained putting this week, but he's not a great putter.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of that, but once he's untethered the way that, say, somebody like Miller was untethered from having to hang out with these guys every week, having to be in the locker room every week. Could you imagine if he'd slaughtered Brooks Koepka? You know, Brooks Koepka saw him in the locker room the following Wednesday afternoon. So, you know, yeah, again, although a lot of these guys are good. I don't know if you saw the was it the English Open up at Close House. Westwood was in the booth, and he was brilliant as well, and and really brilliant, very insightful. So it's like, a lot. I mean, McGinley's gone into the commentary world, and he's just fantastic, isn't he?
We all want Harrington to do it here as well. Anytime he's on, he's like a breath of fresh air. So let's touch on this leaderboard then. Dustin Johnson, 9 under. I mean, he's our starting point. He has one major. Really, by rights, he should have 3 or 4, such is the talent. He has found different ways on Sundays at majors when pressure is on to mess up, be it the USPGA on the bunker, not bunker, be it the US Open where McDowell won, and I know it's 10 years ago now, but he collapsed under the pressure of sleeping on the lead. This is, I'm just fascinated to see Dustin Johnson sleeping on a lead. Does he have what it takes to post a 2 under round and force Koepka to shoot 4 under? That's the big question for me this evening.
Well, if he shoots 2 under, he's not going to win it, I don't think.
Do you not think so?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Koepka's well capable of shooting 66 with a major championship on the line. I know Johnson won recently.
Sorry to interrupt. 66 would just put him level with Johnson.
Okay, then. So Johnson and Koepka in a playoff, Joe. Where's your money going there?
Anyone in Koepka in a playoff. Where is Johnson? Where is Johnson, do we think, when it comes to pressure and Sundays? And am I being unfair to him?
I don't think you are. I mean, you are. His record is his record. And particularly today, again, I know he won the Travellers recently, so he's playing decently enough, but he's first in the field in strokes gained putting, right? And that is not, can he do that again? Can he sustain that for the week? I mean, history suggests he's going to revert. He's not going to revert all the way to the mean. I think on tour for the year, I think he's 139th in strokes gained putting, and this week he's first. I mean, I don't know what he held yesterday. I think he had 8 birdies yesterday, so he held a hell of a lot of putts. So I just wonder today if he won't revert to the mean in some kind of way. And he's hitting less. I mean, he's hitting 42% of fairways. Right, a lot of them up there are not hitting a lot of fairways, but that is not. If he does that today, and his putting goes slightly back to where it should be, then you'd have to wonder about him at the very, very least. Then you add his record in the final rounds. Although he did, when Brooks won at Bethpage, I mean, Johnson they played together, if you remember, in the final day, and Johnson put a good fair amount of pressure on him. So, but yeah.
Even that final day, sorry to interrupt, as soon as Johnson got within a sniff, remember he went over the back of a green? It was like 14, 15 territory, and he just went over the back of a green into short side himself, horrible rough. And it was as soon as the pressure really came on and he had a chance of winning it, and he made that cataclysmic mistake. And I just thought, this guy is fragile, more fragile than we realised.
Isn't that amazing, though? Yeah, well, more than you realise, because you look at him, his kind of whole deal is, the persona is the kind of gunslinger, cool, and kind of Clint Eastwood kind of guy. But he just goes to show you can never kind of know what's going on inside these fellas. And it's, again, they're technically, they all have quirks, especially in the kind of modern era. All the kind of cookie cutter swings are the thing of the past. But I mean, these are quite idiosyncratic swings. Him in particular, and when you apply the ultimate pressure, that's when can it hold up? Can the technique hold up in the fulcrum? And of course, you have the kind of the mental thing. I always joke that people call DeChambeau the mad scientist, but he never graduated from college. DJ did, but he doesn't kind of think straight. He clearly has a clear history of not thinking straight. I was there at Whistling Straits. I mean, that was just insane, and his reaction afterwards was very odd as well. And of a person who wasn't really thinking straight, emotionally was completely detached from what was going on, completely head scrambled. That seems to happen to him a lot. Not all the time, but a lot. And you go to Chambers Bay again. Phenomenal 5 iron to the 72nd green, 3 putts from 12 feet. Come on.
Yeah.
So I would have quite a lot of doubts about him this afternoon. Of course, he'll go and win, of course.
Oh, well, listen, look, before anyone texts in, the flip side we know is 2016 when he steamed home in that US Open and Shane Lowry was alongside him and he was imperious that day and unflappable. So what you do when you see Johnson there and you know his history on Sundays is you do a quick glance down the leaderboard and your name stops on Koepka 7 under. Lawrence, for people vaguely aware of this guy, what has he done just in the last 2-3 weeks? Pete Cowan coming over. It's been not unforeseeable because he is a Brooks Koepka, but like 2-3 weeks ago, I really thought this guy was just having what was going to be a season-long slump. Almost overnight, he seemed to turn this around.
He just has a habit of doing this. And again, I don't think the sample size is big enough. But he plays on it. I'm a major championship guy. For me, it's all about major championships. I peak for major championships. That's all I think. Regular PGA Tour events don't really matter to me. But I mean, if he keeps it up, I mean, it was phenomenal. He was lost. He looked like a guy who was lost. And but then he brings in Phil Kenyon. Has a phenomenal week in putting. I mean, this is you got to be careful with this one, but his coach in inverted commas is Claude Harmon.
Yeah.
But Pete Cowan suddenly shows up, and lo and behold, I think it speaks to the genius of Pete Cowan. I mean, this is the first week he's really spent a lot of time with Pete Cowan. He's started working with Phil Kenyon. Those two guys in tandem are. What a formidable team those two. So there's that element of it, and I mean the kind of the arousal of a major championship, and it probably helps. And this golf course suits Koepka a lot. It really does. It's if you want to sit down again, we talked about Bill Reeve, we talked about Beth Pace Black. This is very much from the same kind of mold. So the golf course suits him. He's got Cowan, he's got Kenyon in tow. He's just a phenomenal character. Yesterday after his round, I was around in the day. People wouldn't say anything.
No.
Nobody would kind of razz anybody. And then he comes in, and essentially he might have stood in front of the microphone and said, "Well, Dustin Johnson's he's a basket case. He's got no chance," which is essentially what he said.
Yeah.
And he must look. Well, but what he said, if people didn't hear it, that the Johnsons, he's 1-1. We'll see how he does. These two were, if you remember them, the narrative was these two were meant to be very close buddies. Well, clearly they're not. And if I'm Koepka, I'm looking at everybody else. I mean, you have to go down to Justin Rose, and then after that, in the top 20, there's only Justin Rose and Johnson have won a major championship. If I'm Koepka, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, woof. I mean, some of the, how's Scotty Scheffler going to come down the stretch? I mean, how's he going to do? If he's there. I think it's set up for Koepka, and he's not scared to win it. I mean, that would be 5 in I think it's 3 years or something. Phenomenal.
It's insane. It's scary, and 3 USPGAs in a row is scary as well. He's just unflappable, and this emerged very early on in his major winning form. I remember him blown away at some of his scrambling because he's big and muscle bound and has the Dustin Johnson-esque swagger, and you think he's just a bomber. But there's so much subtlety and brilliance to his short game, and then it's his mental ability, which. So last night, this guy's the favourite. He's talked himself up. He goes bogey, bogey, bogey. He's suddenly 4 shots back. Like, you've blown it. It's a capitulation. And then he responds with his 3 remaining holes to go birdie, birdie, including 18, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
And you just think, has this fella ever been rattled? I mean, the steeliness is quite phenomenal under the most pressure.
I suppose if I had more time to think about it, I might come up with an instance where he did look rattled, or he played rattled. But
last year at the USPGA, but I guess he salvaged it, didn't he?
Well, yeah, I guess that. But as you say that, and the pin on 18 yesterday was just absurd.
Yeah.
and three straight bogeys, and there's plenty in the field who would have just that would have been them carted out in a wheelbarrow, gone.
Yeah.
But he is a really interesting guy. He's clearly very smart. I mean, I think he knows. I think part of it is pantomime stuff. I think he quite enjoys winding people up. I mean, his stuff with DeChambeau, he's right in DeChambeau's face when everybody else is. Although I did notice that Adam Scott had a go at DeChambeau as well. I mean, he hits it far, but it's not that far. I mean,
what was all the hype about?
Well, yeah, so they're all kind of piling in on DeChambeau. Again, it'll be interesting to see, how DeChambeau does today as well. And DeChambeau or Koepka, because a lot of people would say they're cut from the same cloth. I mean, even physically they look quite alike, but I think mentally they are streets apart. It strikes, and the evidence suggests that this is the case, that Koepka is very much in control of his emotions, and DeChambeau is. He might prove us all wrong today, but he seems to be all over the place. Very excitable, and DeChambeau and Koepka's not very excitable.
And how do you think DeChambeau has fared, his new approach, this massive length off the tee, obviously, and he'll, wherever it is, he'll find it and try and gouge his way onto the greens. How has it worked at a major setup?
Well, I mean, he's in with a chance on Sunday, so you'd have to say it's worked decently. Although I think he did say that he's dialed back this week, simply because it's hard to find golf balls. I mean, you look Rory. I mean, the third hole is like a 175-yard par 3, and Rory kind of almost loses his ball. So the absence of fans, who usually, you'll have the space between the fairway and the fairway ropes as rough, but out beyond that, the fans have trampled that all down. They haven't done that here. So DeChambeau is suggesting that he's dialed it back. But again, I think he's 40% fairways. That's a hell of a lot of strain on the rest of your game. If you're missing, you're missing 6 out of every 10 fairways, then it's can he chip and putt well enough? You would say that Brooks Koepka could, but I wonder if DeChambeau can.
Yeah.
But a pretty good first outing. But given that all the pre-tournament hype was, this guy is changing the face of golf, it's a transformed game. Well, hang on a second. We'll see. Yes.
Most observers yesterday felt they probably had never seen Tiger Woods put so badly.
Yeah, it's funny though, isn't it? He putted great. I think he putted pretty well on Thursday, and it's amazing. He's got a new putter in the bag this week. It's a bit longer because he's 44-year-old, 45. I don't know, is he 45? 45-year-old back can't stand to stoop over so much. So I think he's got a new Scotty Cameron in the bag. I think that'll be the last we see of this new Scotty Cameron.
Yeah.
He'll pull out the old Newport too. You kind of wonder. Tiger, obviously Tiger won the WGC here in 2005. He would have eaten up the old Tiger would have eaten up this golf course. But it's just a modern, monster piece, if you like. And if you miss the fairway, he doesn't have. You would have to think his back would not stand hitting the ball with the sheer power out of the rough that the younger guys can. So I think this. I mean, it's amazing. I find myself saying this, but I think it's just too much golf course for Tiger. Yeah. At this stage of his career.
And a couple of aspects of his game look a touch underprepared. That was McGinley's feeling last night watching on TV. He is.
Well, he's only played twice in the last 9 weeks or something.
And who knows how much he is able to practice, really. So he is trying to do something which is close to impossible. How can he come out and, have done the minimum amount of reps and then somehow go against guys in their 20s and 30s? Hao Tong Lee is still on the driving range by all accounts. They are practicing non-stop. You wonder if it's a master plan maybe to prep for US Open and Augusta, and he's going to ramp it up slowly but surely. But it's really hard to know what is going on with Woods.
I think it's all about Augusta for him now. If you're looking ahead to the US Open, Winged Foot, I mean, that's just that's traditionally known as the toughest course. Open would probably say otherwise, but the Winged Foot is a very, very tough history on the US Open rotor, so that you got to write that off for Tiger. He's not winning a Winged Foot. Augusta, because he's not having to. Well, he's got the the knowledge, the institutional knowledge of Augusta. I mean, he's won there so many times. So he can, and it's more of a shot maker's golf course than these these kind of new style major championship venues. So he can, if he turns up at Augusta, well, Jack Nicklaus won there at 46. So, Tiger will be looking at that and thinking, well, I can still win at Augusta. But as for the rest of it, I think he's got to the stage he has to write off these PGA Championships and probably US Open now. I mean, the Open Championship at St Andrews, he's probably thinking, he's looking ahead. He's thinking, well, he'd be disappointed that the Opens, St Andrews has now gone back to 2022. But I think it's all about Augusta for him. Can he get to 18 with Augusta? He'll fancy himself to nick the one at St Andrews, and then if he can nick two more Masters, that's it. Again, who knows? But that would be my version of his game plan.
Yeah, it does seem like the logical plan. What about Rory then? It seemed like a period, he was warming to the task a little bit yesterday, but there's just such a volatility, Lawrence, to his play. Just throwing away shots at times, and then other times he'll play a hole like very few players can, and you think, well, there it is. For sure, nobody's been railroaded more by lockdown than McIlroy in terms of the form and how he looked heading into Augusta next to everybody else. But he just has, in the way that Koepka, in a very brief period of time, can click a switch and probably hit 2 or 3 shots in a range and just go, oh, that's okay, grand, thanks Pete, I'm good. McIlroy, when he gets into these slumps, untangling himself seems to take that bit longer than we would like.
He just looks undercooked. I wonder if he's been practicing much. I mean, I'll probably get an angry. No, I won't. He won't hear this. But he just looks undercooked to me. I mean, I think the thing you'll remember for this week is the kind of incident, the kind of fair play incident. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
We'll take that away. Yeah, really, really, really good. Again, he just looks undercooked to me. I didn't get off to have the particularly great start, and these guys never chuck it. They always fancy themselves to kind of get themselves back into contention. But he not, again, just undercooked, underprepared. Probably looks like he hasn't practiced that much again, and just kind of lost the tightness in his game.
Yes,
I mean, I think it's that simple.
Yeah, at times I worry, to be honest. It's a bit more serious than that. I mean, you take the start of round 2, first hole, he's a wedge in, stitches it, birdie, perfect, and then hits a brilliant drive on the second hole. He's got 138, 140 yards into the green, basically misses the green. He's so far short and right. And then a par 3 comes up, flares that right. Again, McGinley, who I'm kind of watching this alongside on Sky, is talking about how too often with his wedges, that club is getting stuck behind him and stuck inside. And there's a period where he hits those sawn-off wedge shots and you think he's really getting on top of it. Under practice, yes, but he's played 5 or 6 times. Like, how much do you need to get some kind of reps in where you can hit better wedge shots when you're Rory McIlroy,
Not to get too nerdy, but if you listen to him talk about when he gets off, I mean, he really, when he gets off, he drops it way in underneath the plane and behind him, and that's when it gets because either you're pushing it right or you're trying to flip it at the bottom to get it back on line.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at his swing this week, that's, to me, I mean, I'm not an expert, clearly, but that looks to be very much the case. And I'm sure he's identified that as well, but I mean, he hasn't taken action to correct that. And you are right when he's those wedge shots. I mean, there was a stat from a couple of weeks ago. I think he had it was a 5-wood from 268 yards and 6 wedges from 130 yards, and the 5-wood ended up closest to the hole.
Yeah,
his wedge game has always been his I hesitate to use the word weak with reference to McIlroy, but it's the least best part of his game. And as I say, to me, his swing this week looks very much out and underneath, and that's when he's like that to this extent, even a kind of a lay person like me can spot it. Then he obviously hasn't taken the action to correct that.
Just a quick word before you go. There was this amazing image on Thursday of Jordan Spieth sitting on the driving range talking, I think, to Cameron McCormack, his coach, and Michael Greller, the caddy, sort of standing nearby. And I mean, it's the most incredible game that he could lose himself so badly. He is I don't know where he is, but he's a long, long, long way gone down a black hole.
Yeah, it's you don't want to say because he is a good we all have kind of limited dealings with these people, but he's a good person. But he is getting into the David Duval territory, isn't he?
Yeah.
In a technical sense, he was never the most orthodox Spieth, and whatever deficiencies there was in his swing, he more than made up with it with putting. But that's only, that you can only take that so far. It must have been he played with Justin Thomas yesterday, and they were. But they were big buddies. They're still big buddies. But back in the junior days, they were the two guys that dominated. It's called the American Junior Golf Association circuit. That is the premier junior circuit. But it was always the case when Spieth's name appeared on an entry list, everybody else knew that they were playing for second place, including Justin Thomas.
Right.
And I think Thomas beat him by, I think it was 6 or 7 yesterday. That would be, that would have been a pretty stark. I'm trying to think what the word is, but if I'm Jordan Spieth, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, my goodness, how did it come to this?
Yeah.
It's as you say, Joe, it's a long way back for that guy.
Yeah, it sure is. Okay, well, listen, enjoy the afternoon. I'll be kind of nodding off sometime around the leaders or kind of at like the 5th or 6th because I can't stick with it. My body says no.
You won't be nodding off when Rory Birdie's the first 10. That'll keep you up.
That would keep me up. That would keep me up. I mean, geez. When he's in full flow, there's no one better to watch.